Good morning. I'm Remo, and breaking overnight, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu called Donald Trump before bombing Qatar in an unprecedented military strike that's sending shockwaves across the Middle East. This is the Daily Signal for September 16th, 2025. Stay tuned for the rest of the stories.
Unfiltered. Now.
Here are the other top stories for September 16th, 2025. Warsaw government buildings targeted by mysterious drone. Polish PM announces successful neutralization by security forces. British politicians unite in condemning Elon Musk after shocking anti-migrant rally appearance sparks national outrage. Two American observers spotted at Belarus-Russia war games, raising critical questions about U.S. intelligence operations. UK aristocrat and partner sentenced to 14 years for daughter's killing. Elite privilege fails in shocking murder case. EU and NATO impose coordinated tariffs on China and India. Unprecedented economic warfare strategy unfolds. Pope Leo XIV warns world faces big trouble if Elon Musk becomes first trillionaire. Vatican enters wealth inequality debate. Coordinated orca attacks force emergency rescue of two sailboats off Portuguese coast. Marine behavior baffles scientists. Ukrainian drone strike shuts down key Russian oil refinery unit. Energy war escalates deep inside Russia. German far-right party surges as biggest election winner despite conservative lead. Democracy under pressure across Europe. Now let's dive into each story. Here's what happened overnight. According to an Axios investigation, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu personally contacted President Donald Trump before ordering military strikes against Qatar, a revelation that's unprecedented in modern diplomatic history. The bombing represents Israel's most dramatic escalation against a Gulf state in decades. Qatar has traditionally served as a crucial mediator in Middle East conflicts, housing U.S. military bases and maintaining relationships with both Western allies and Iran. Here's the critical detail. This conversation happened before the strike, not after. We're talking about a former U.S. president receiving advance notice of a major military operation that could reshape the entire region. The content of their discussion remains classified, but the timing raises explosive questions. Was this consultation, coordination, or something else entirely? Why this matters to you? This blurs every traditional line of American foreign policy. Presidents don't typically receive advance briefings on foreign military operations. The legal and constitutional implications are staggering. Arab League nations are calling emergency sessions. Oil prices spiked 8% overnight. And the Biden administration is scrambling to contain diplomatic damage they apparently knew nothing about. Breaking from Poland, Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that security forces successfully neutralized a drone flying directly over government buildings in Warsaw yesterday afternoon. Here's the startling part. This wasn't some hobbyist drone. Intelligence sources suggest the aircraft was equipped with sophisticated surveillance equipment and flew precision patterns over the Defense Ministry and Prime Minister's office. Polish authorities activated their newest counter-drone systems, which few knew even existed until this moment. The drone was brought down using electronic warfare technology that jammed its communications and navigation systems. No group has claimed responsibility, but the timing is critical. This comes just 48 hours after the Belarus-Russia military exercises we'll discuss shortly, and 3 days after NATO intelligence reports warned of increased espionage activities in Central Europe. Why this matters? Warsaw is NATO's Eastern Front headquarters. Any breach of Polish airspace near government facilities represents a direct challenge to CAF, alliance security protocols. The investigation is focusing on three possibilities: Russian intelligence gathering, Belarusian provocation, or domestic terrorism. Each scenario carries different escalation risks, but all point to growing security threats in Central Europe. Polish authorities are now implementing emergency airspace restrictions over all government facilities, and other NATO capitals are reviewing their own drone defense capabilities. Elon Musk shocked the political world yesterday by appearing at an anti-migrant rally in London, making statements that prompted unified condemnation from British politicians across party lines. Here's what makes this unprecedented. We're not talking about social media posts or interviews. Musk physically attended a rally organized by anti-immigration groups and delivered a speech calling for demographic protection and cultural preservation, language that immediately drew comparisons to far-right movements across Europe. Demanded Musk be banned from future UK visits. Even Reform UK, typically supportive of immigration restrictions, distanced themselves from Musk's rhetoric. The UK government is now considering emergency regulations specifically targeting social media platforms owned by individuals who promote extremist ideologies on British soil, a direct shot at Musk's ownership of X, formerly Twitter. Why this matters to your daily life? Musk's platforms reach billions globally. His personal political activism now directly impacts social media algorithms, content moderation, and information flow on platforms you use daily. European Union officials announced they're accelerating digital services regulations that could force Musk to choose between his political activism and his business operations in Europe. The rally appearance represents Musk's most direct political intervention outside the United States, signaling his willingness to influence elections and policy debates worldwide. 2 American nationals were present as official observers during Belarus-Russia joint military exercises that concluded yesterday, a development that's raising eyebrows throughout NATO and Washington. Here's the critical detail. These weren't announced diplomatic observers. The State Department initially denied any U.S. presence at the exercises, only to later confirm that 2 Americans attended in unofficial capacities, after satellite imagery and Russian media reports made denial impossible. The exercises simulated invasion scenarios targeting NATO countries, particularly Poland and the Baltic states. Having American observers witness detailed Russian and Belarusian military tactics, equipment capabilities, and coordination protocols is either brilliant intelligence gathering or dangerous escalation. Pentagon sources suggest these observers were likely Defense Intelligence Agency operatives using diplomatic cover, but their presence was apparently not coordinated with traditional embassy or military attaché channels. Why this matters? Russia and Belarus are treating this as validation of their military preparations. Russian state media is claiming the American presence proves NATO's defensive aggression narrative is false. The bigger question: was this authorized by the Biden administration, or did these observers act independently? Either answer carries serious implications for U.S.-Russia relations and internal government coordination. Belarus President Lukashenko personally met with the American observers, calling their presence evidence of Washington's understanding that dialogue is necessary. That's diplomatic language suggesting these meetings went far beyond simple observation. A shocking conclusion to one of Britain's most disturbing criminal cases. Aristocrat Victoria Hervey and partner Richard Stern have been sentenced to 14 years in prison for the killing of Victoria's 7-year-old daughter. Here's what the court revealed that wasn't public during the trial. The killing was not a single incident, but the culmination of months of systematic abuse. Evidence showed the child was denied medical care, subjected to physical violence, and ultimately died from injuries that multiple medical experts called entirely preventable. The case shattered assumptions about wealth and child protection. Despite the family's status and resources, social services failed to detect the abuse during multiple home visits. The child's private school never reported concerning signs, and family friends later admitted they suspected problems but didn't act. Judge Martin Spencer imposed the 14-year sentence, saying privilege provides no shield against justice, directly addressing public concerns that aristocratic status might influence penalties. Why this matters? The conviction is forcing a complete review of child protection services for wealthy families. Social workers and educators often assume elite families provide better childcare, creating dangerous blind spots in abuse detection. The case has already triggered new mandatory reporting requirements for private schools and pediatric healthcare providers serving affluent communities. Parliamentary inquiries are examining whether current child protection laws adequately address abuse in high-income households, where traditional warning signs may be hidden by private services and family resources. In an unprecedented move, the European Union and NATO member states announced coordinated tariffs targeting imports from China and India, marking the first time the military alliance has directly intervened in trade policy. Here's what makes this extraordinary. NATO's charter focuses on collective defense, not economic policy. This coordination represents a fundamental expansion of the alliance's scope, treating trade as a national security issue requiring military alliance response. The tariffs target strategic sectors including semiconductors, renewable energy technology, and telecommunications equipment. European officials explicitly cited former President Trump's trade policies as inspiration, marking a dramatic shift from previous criticism of his protectionist approach. China and India responded immediately with retaliatory tariffs on European agricultural products and luxury goods, setting up the framework for a full-scale trade war across multiple continents. Why this matters to your wallet? These tariffs will increase prices on electronics, solar panels, and consumer goods across Europe and North America. Supply chain disruptions are already affecting automotive and technology manufacturing. The bigger picture is even more significant. NATO is essentially creating an economic front against China and India, treating trade relationships as military alliances. This coordination required months of secret negotiations between defense and trade officials, suggesting Western governments view economic competition with China as an existential security threat requiring military alliance response. Pope Leo XIV delivered his strongest criticism yet of wealth inequality, specifically warning that the world faces big trouble if Elon Musk becomes the world's first trillionaire. Here's the context that makes this remarkable. The Pope's comments come as Tesla's board proposed a $1 trillion compensation package for Musk, contingent on growing the company eightfold over the next decade. Just yesterday, Musk purchased $1 billion in Tesla stock, signaling his commitment to the ambitious target. In his first formal interview since becoming Pope, Leo XIV said CEO compensation that was 4 to 6 times worker salaries 60 years ago has exploded to 600 times average worker pay today. He called Musk's potential trillionaire status a moral crisis for global society. The Vatican's intervention in business compensation represents an escalation of Catholic social teaching into direct criticism of individual wealth accumulation. Previous papal statements focused on systemic inequality. This targets a specific person and company. Why this matters? The Pope's statement legitimizes political and regulatory action against extreme executive compensation. European Union officials are already citing papal authority in developing new corporate governance requirements. Musk hasn't responded publicly, but Tesla stock dropped 4% in after-hours trading following the Pope's comments, suggesting investors take Vatican criticism seriously in a predominantly Catholic European market. The broader question is whether religious authority can influence modern capitalism. Leo XIV is essentially challenging the moral foundation of billionaire wealth accumulation, particularly when workers struggle with basic expenses. 2 sailboats required emergency rescue off the Portuguese coast yesterday, after coordinated attacks by orcas that disabled both vessels' steering systems. Here's what makes this terrifying. The orcas didn't attack randomly. Marine biologists reviewing rescue footage identified specific targeting of rudder systems, suggesting learned behavior that's being transmitted between orca pods. The attacks lasted over 2 hours, with multiple orcas taking turns ramming the boat's steering mechanisms until both vessels lost navigation control. Coast Guard rescuers described the orcas as methodical and coordinated in their assault. This continues a disturbing pattern of orca attacks along the Iberian Peninsula that began in 2020 but has dramatically escalated this summer. Marine scientists are baffled by the behavior change, which appears to be spreading throughout local orca populations. Why this matters? Maritime tourism and commercial fishing are under threat as vessels avoid traditional shipping routes. Insurance companies are adding orca attack exclusions to marine policies. The attacks suggest something fundamental has changed in orca behavior, possibly related to climate change, food scarcity, or trauma from human activities. Portuguese authorities are implementing emergency protocols requiring vessels to carry specific deterrent equipment when transiting known orca territories. A Ukrainian drone strike forced Russia's Kirishi oil refinery to halt operations of a critical processing unit overnight, marking the deepest Ukrainian attack into Russian territory to date. Here's the strategic significance. Kirishi processes 300,000 barrels daily and supplies fuel throughout northwestern Russia and the Baltic region. The attack demonstrates Ukrainian capability to strike high-value economic targets 400 miles inside Russian territory. Russian officials confirmed the strike caused temporary operational disruptions, but claimed no permanent damage. However, energy analysts report refined fuel prices spiking across the Baltic region, suggesting more significant impact than official statements acknowledge. The precision strike targeted specific processing equipment rather than storage tanks, indicating detailed intelligence about refinery operations and suggesting Ukrainian forces can conduct surgical strikes against Russian energy infrastructure. Why this matters: Ukraine is systematically degrading Russia's energy production capabilities while avoiding environmental disasters that would alienate international support. Global energy markets are responding with increased volatility as traders recognize no Russian energy facility is safe from Ukrainian attack. This could affect heating costs and fuel prices worldwide as winter approaches. The attack proves Ukrainian drone technology can reach strategic targets throughout European Russia, fundamentally changing the conflict's geographic scope. German local elections delivered a shocking result. While Friedrich Merz's Christian Democratic Union maintained their lead, the far-right Alternative for Germany posted the election's biggest gains, signaling dangerous political fragmentation in Europe's largest economy. The AfD increased their vote share by 6% across multiple states, breaking through traditional firewall strategies that kept far-right parties marginalized. Mainstream parties are now facing the possibility that AfD could become the second largest party in national elections. Exit polls show AfD gained support across all demographic groups, not just traditional far-right constituencies. Middle-class voters cited immigration concerns and economic uncertainty as primary motivations for supporting previously taboo political positions. Why this matters: Germany anchors European Union stability and NATO's eastern defense. AfD opposes NATO membership, EU integration, and military aid to Ukraine, positions that could fracture Western alliance structures if they gain national power. The results are already triggering emergency meetings among mainstream parties about grand coalition strategies to prevent AfD from influencing government formation in upcoming state and federal elections. Looking across today's stories, we're witnessing a fundamental breakdown of traditional international order. Netanyahu bypassed official U.S. diplomatic channels to coordinate with Trump. NATO is expanding into trade policy. The Vatican is directly challenging individual wealth accumulation. European democracy faces far-right pressure while authoritarian alliances strengthen. The common thread is institutions operating outside their traditional boundaries, military alliances making economic policy, former presidents conducting foreign policy, religious authority challenging capitalism, and extremist parties mainstreaming previously unacceptable positions. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a global system where established rules no longer constrain major actors. Whether you're watching Pope Leo challenge Musk's trillion-dollar compensation or Ukrainian drones striking deep inside Russia, the message is clear. Old assumptions about power, diplomacy, and international law are collapsing. The immediate impact affects your daily life through energy prices, trade costs, and political stability. The longer-term implications suggest we're entering a period where anything can happen because traditional constraints on behavior are disappearing. Tomorrow, watch for responses from Beijing and New Delhi on the coordinated Western tariffs, Tesla's stock reaction to papal criticism, and whether Putin responds to the refinery attack with escalation or restraint. This is the Daily Signal. I'm Remo. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Unfiltered.